front door, Mom hesitated, drew a deep breath, and said, "Okay, has everybody still got their blindfolds?" "No," my brother Logan replied sarcastically. "I lost mine since you asked 3 seconds ago." Logan hated the safety lectures we got whenever we visited Grandma. He was 13 and I was 10, both tall and stocky with a shock of blonde hair. Mom's eyes narrowed at him. "Logan, how about you drop the attitude? Like I haven't got enough on my plate already." "My blindfold's right here," I said, tapping my forehead before another argument broke out. "Good boy, Blake. We'll be in and out in 20 minutes, I promise." "Then we're getting Burger King, right?" "Absolutely," she said with a bright smile. I punched the air while Logan muttered something too low to hear. A special treat like Burger King was a huge deal to me back then. Our grandparents' house lay in the center of a dirt lot, surrounded by a chain-link fence. All the curtains were taped shut. Mom wrapped the door. Then we waited there for a few minutes while rain hammered the gutters like a steel drum. I remember worrying we'd stand there until Grandma's golden hour started. Mom grabbed a ring of keys from her bag and undid the series of locks. Then we stepped into the musty air of the house, shaking water from our coats and jackets. All the tacky upholstered furniture was already outdated, even back then, and the walls were covered with shelves displaying Grandpa's prized model car collection. Usually, Logan and I stood on the welcome mat while Mom battened down the hatches. But past the stairs and to the left, smoke was pouring out from beneath the kitchen door. Mom rushed along the corridor into the kitchen, followed closely by Blake and I. The downstairs landing wrapped around the stairs, with the kitchen at the back of the house. On the stove, a fry pan was spurting with giant flames as Grandma, completely unaware of the danger, tried to scramble some eggs. Mom yanked the pan off the grill just as an alarm started shrieking. She shouted for us to get Grandma out of there, waving away most of the smoke with a set of oven mitts. Dressed in her pink nightgown, Grandma fought us every step of the way, swiping at the air with her long yellow nails. I was afraid of using too much force because her frail body always made me picture a skeleton. In the lounge, she refused to settle on a plastic-covered sofa. Everything was shrink-wrapped, really, until Logan promised he'd make her a corned beef sandwich if she behaved, speaking in the soft tones you'd use around a fussy toddler. Shortly after the alarm quieted, Mom came in and said to Grandma, "Where's Dad?" He didn't answer the door. "Ugh, don't speak to me about that man. I was washing the dog, but he kept climbing away." "Grandma and Grandpa got a dog," I whispered to Logan. "No, dickhead. Grandma's nuts, remember?" "Logan," Mom snapped. She insisted we refer to Grandma's problems as her funny spells. Once it became obvious nobody could coax any sense out of the old lady, Mom went to find Grandpa herself. We'd barely had time to sit when she screamed from a room upstairs. Logan and I exchanged a look of concern, then rushed after her. Grandpa was sprawled across the bathroom floor, groaning. A shower curtain, which had been ripped off its hooks, covered his midsection, and blood oozed from a deep gash along his forehead, staining the tiled floor red. He'd slipped while climbing out of the tub. Him and Mom had endless arguments about that house being a death trap, but he refused to move. He was afraid what might have happened if they moved someplace filled with nosy neighbors. Mom shouted for me to call an ambulance. I rushed downstairs, but the rotary phone in the landing spat a dead tone. I figured the storm knocked out the lines. "It's not working," I said as I rushed back. Mom pinched the bridge of her nose and sobbed while Logan and I stood there. Kids aren't great at processing those sorts of situations. She told Logan to help her get Grandpa into a bathrobe hanging from a nearby rack. "You, gross," Logan sneered. "Now!" Mom's sudden outburst upset me more than all the blood. She rarely raised her voice. She told me to help with the doors. Grandpa must have noticed me shaking. because he forced a smile and said, "I tell you, Blake, this getting old business ain't for the faint-hearted." He spoke as if he'd just had 5 glasses of whiskey, all sluggish and lazy. Logan and Mom helped him outside into the family Volvo, all 4 of us getting drenched. "All right, everybody in the car," she said, panting heavily. "I'm not leaving Helena," Grandpa protested from the passenger seat. "She needs somebody to keep an eye on her." Mom's hand shot up out of frustration. She took a moment to compose herself, checked her watch, and then said, "Okay, you boys stay here while I take Grandpa to hospital. Grandma's gonna be fine for another 3 hours. I'll be back before then, but keep your blindfolds close just in case. Logan, you're in charge. Set your electric watch thingy for 8:45 so you don't forget." "That's okay. I'll remember." "Just fucking do it!" she screamed as she climbed into the car, slamming the door shut behind her. As we watched her drive off, I told myself there was no reason to freak out. We'd stayed with Grandma during her golden hour many times. Yeah, before her funny spells, a voice at the back of my mind added, "Are we still getting Burger King?" I asked Logan after Mom's Volvo disappeared. He rolled his eyes and spun toward the house. That stung. I was sick of him treating me like a stupid kid. The locks were more complicated than a Rubik's Cube, so Logan needed to reseal them. As he did, Grandma hobbled out of the lounge. I met her at the doorway, but she said, "Get your hands off me, pervert." "Grandma, it's me." "Blake, I'm not an invalid. Piss off before I scream." It hurt when she treated me like a stranger. Growing up, I'd always looked forward to seeing her. The way she'd hug me close and cover the top of my head with fierce little kisses and insist on giving me money for sweets. Logan and I both had a go at explaining what happened, but she only tutted and said, "That man always was a drama queen." She went to climb the stairs, but between her stooped spine and rickety knees, the trek took 5 minutes. Even with our help. Anytime we steadied her, she unloaded another round of insults. She disappeared into the bedroom, and then her rough chainsaw snore rang out. And that was that. My brother and I were stranded there without so much as a Game Boy. In the lounge, a CRT TV received a fuzzy picture of BBC One, so we watched 20 minutes of a cooking show where celebrities crowded around a sizzling pan. With every roll of thunder, the signal temporarily turned to black and white fuzz. I kept pestering Logan to play the blind game, but he insisted he was too old until a program about renovating houses started. The blind game was simple. Somebody put their blindfold on and looked for the other while the hider tried sneaking up on them. Usually, I hid in a storage cupboard at the back of the kitchen, just large enough to hold me, a vacuum cleaner and a mop. But now I was old enough and smart enough to realize it was the first place Logan checked. So, I left the door slightly open and perched myself on the closest counter instead. When he made a beeline for the nook, I leapt onto his back. He shrugged me off, wrestled me onto the floor, and then pinched the pressure point in my shoulder, both of us laughing. After a few rounds, we'd exhausted every hiding place and returned to the TV. Our stomachs wouldn't quit grumbling. A bacon double cheeseburger should have been halfway through my digestive system by then. As time marched on, we spoke less and less. Even though the windows were blocked, I knew it was getting dark. 7:30 became 7:45, then 8. My teeth started chattering together. "Quit being such a pussy," Logan said, although I could tell he was nervous because he kept tapping his watch non-stop. I must have still looked scared because he reached over and patted me on the shoulder. "Just chill. Mom will get back soon. Then we'll go for Burger King." As if on cue, his watch beeped. 15 minutes to go. Swallowing a gulp, he said, "Okay, get your blindfold on." He helped adjust mine so everything was perfectly black. Then we sat in silence while a tennis ball got batted around on TV. I'm not sure how much time passed, because I didn't want to risk peeking at the clock above the mantelpiece. Soon, the TV cut to an emergency weather report. A lady announced several major roads were closed due to flooding. My hands balled into fists. Did that mean Mom couldn't reach us? From above our heads, there came a heavy thud. My neck craned towards the sound. On television, a crowd applauded. Logan fumbled for the remote to switch it off. Then we breathed in sharply. "What should we do?" I whispered. "Nothing. But what if Grandma's hurt like Grandpa was? Nobody's fucking hurt." There was another thud, loud enough to rattle fixtures around the room. "Wait here," Logan sighed. When he got up, I did too, partly because I was sick of him brushing me aside, mostly because I was terrified of being left alone. I grabbed onto his t-shirt despite his protests, and then we shuffled into the chilly, drafty hall, hands fumbling across radiators, feet stamping along the floor. On our way to the stairs, Logan tried the phone, but it was dead. The noisy steps creaked beneath our feet. Still blindfolded, we reached the upper landing, and then Logan gently pushed open the bedroom door, only a slither, but wide enough that hot air blasted me in the face, warm and moist, like the inside of a greenhouse. "Grandma," he whispered. A chilling scream rang out, which caused us to cling on to each other. Then Logan's hands fumbled over my face, checking the blindfold hadn't slipped. "Sorry, boys," Grandma said, laughing. "I didn't realize you were here. Where's your mother?" Her voice radiated warmth now, even though she spoke through a swollen throat close to the ceiling. It had a tender quality that helped settle your nerves, even if you'd cut your finger or seen a monster in the closet. An enormous sense of relief washed through me. Her funny spell had ended. She'd become lucid again. After we explained what happened, she said, "Well, nothing else doing but to wait the storm out, I'm afraid. Have you boys had tea yet?" We told her we hadn't. "All right then, let's get you fed and watered," she said as she ducked beneath the doorframe. Logan and I felt our way into the kitchen and sat around the table while cupboards swung open and shut. Soon the aroma of beef stew filled the air. "Bon appétit," Grandma said, setting out 2 bowls. "Do you know what that means, Blake?" "Good appetite." "Smart lad. What do you boys say to some pavlova for dessert?" "Yes, please," I said. "Fuck. I mean, hell yeah," Logan added. She scolded him for his language, then said, "I'll leave you to eat in peace. Call me when you're ready. Remember, blindfolds stay on." I devoured my stew without spilling much. Was I still upset about Burger King? Sure. But a stew pavlova 2-punch combo tasted almost as good. Soon our spoons dropped into the bowls. Then we sat back, our bellies full. We shouted we were done. Then we waited. And we waited. And we waited. The legs of Logan's chair scraped across the floor. "Logan," I said anxiously. "Chill. I'm gonna tell her we're ready for dessert." He marched off down the hall, leaving me alone. It was dead quiet in the house except for the rain, thunder, and my racing thoughts. It had easily been 5 hours since Mom left. How bad was the storm anyway? Could we have been trapped there for days? And what about Grandpa? Would he be okay? Part of me wanted to stay there and let Logan sort things out, but I wasn't a kid anymore. I went after him, calling as I went. My hands ran over the side paneling along the walls, over Grandpa's model cars. I fumbled for door handles, calling into empty room after empty room. The house felt twice as big without Logan to guide the way. Passing the stairs, the temperature shot up. On the far side, as I nudged the door into the den open, thick, stuffy air seeped out, poisoning the hall. "Logan," I called. Nobody answered, but as I turned away, a floorboard creaked on the far side of the room. Then a voice spoke out of the darkness, all shredded and hoarse, like scud water regurgitating through a storm drain. "My bed's different." I said, "Grandma, is that you?" What are you growing corn in those ears? Of course it's me. I said the bed's different. There was no bed in there. Only a cabinet, a rickety chair, and a sewing machine. Sweat ran down beneath the blindfold and stung my eyes. Despite the heat, I was shivering. Grandma, is everything okay? Of course it's okay, she snapped. Do you remember who I am? I asked, and I immediately wished I didn't, as if her answering the question kept things from being real. What am I? An imbecile. You're Blake. My chest unclenched. Funny spell averted. I sighed and said, have you seen Logan? He was looking for you. Who knows what that boy's up to? Stealing, probably. This confused me. She scolded Logan for his language a lot, sure. But he was no thief. Anyway, I came to say we're ready for Pavlova. Fine. But first take that silly thing off your head and come give me a hug. With every passing second, the icy silence which followed became more and more unbearable. I cleared my throat. But Grandma, it's your golden hour. We're not supposed to. Don't be ridiculous, she snapped, as that cruel edge seeped back into her voice. Take that thing off and let me see your beautiful face. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. She'd lapsed into another of her episodes. Desperate, I said, Grandma, I don't think that's a good idea. You're sick. Of course I'm sick, she snarled. And you know what the best medicine is? A hug from my favorite grandson. From behind, somebody burst along and fumbled around until they grabbed me by the arm. Fucking run, Blake shouted. He'd sensed the danger and gone the other way around the stairs to find me. He dragged me down the hall by the arm so fast we crashed against lamps and banged our shins against side tables, knocking model cars to the ground, breaking them into 1,000 pieces. At the front door, he fumbled with the locks, but they were borderline impossible even when we could see. We were like rats trapped in a maze. Boys, where are you going? Grandma screamed in a terrified voice. Don't leave me! Heavy footsteps came stomping along. Her arms must have been held out wide because they scraped along both sides of the wall, a distance of more than 6 feet. Logan grabbed me again, and we raced into the kitchen. He slammed the door shut and held his weight against it. Grab a chair. Throughout the ground floor doors opened and shut. Where did you boys go? Come back. I helped get a chair wedged beneath the handle, just as it jiggled. Boys, what's wrong? Let me in. The door bounced once, twice. Quick, Logan shouted. We held our backs against the door, just as Grandma struck a third time, threatening to knock us away. She alternated between mashing her fists and crying for help. I squeezed my eyes shut beneath the blindfold and prayed for Mom to come save us. Then, everything stopped. As we listened, the side of the door shivered open, just a crack. I sensed a finger worming through the gap, followed by a hand, then an entire arm. The arm probed the space directly above our heads. I crouched low, but bony fingers crawled along the top of my skull, hotter than the stove. The hand clamped shut around my head, ripping away the blindfold and singing the hair as I dropped to the floor. Grandma hissed raw fury, then the door bounced again. Without our combined weight holding it shut, the chair gave way. The door burst open and slammed against the inside wall, knocking Logan onto the floor beside me. I caught a glimpse of a misshapen silhouette filling the outer hall, but at the last second shielded my eyes from the glow. Logan picked me up. My blindfold, I whimpered. In a flash, he wrestled his own over my eyes. Hug time, the creature on the far side of the room snarled, the heat surging around us. Logan shielded my body with his own, ready to make his last stand, but I shouted, "The compartment!" We sprinted toward the tiny nook, me first, then Logan tried squeezing in after. I tossed the vacuum and mop away, and then made myself as small as possible. He wedged himself inside and pulled the door as far as it could go. Neither of us had space to breathe, but for a moment I thought we'd be safe in there. But then 2 long arms invaded the space. "Come to Gran and Ike." Logan started sliding away. I found his hands and held on with all my strength, but Grandma was too strong. My big brother, my protector, got reeled away like a fish on a line. He screamed, but not for long, because that scream became a dry croak as his throat closed over. I wanted to help, but I couldn't bring myself to move. So, I yanked the door shut and held my breath. Soon I couldn't hear anything except the harsh thud of blood in my ears. It wasn't long before Logan's watch beeped again, signaling the end of Grandma's golden hour. I didn't budge a single inch, not even when Mom's car pulled up outside, or when she entered the house, or when she found out what happened and started screaming. A few days later, I was helping Grandpa out of the car. His head was encased in a thick bandage. I helped him over to the house while Mom unlocked the door. In the den, Grandma was raving about invisible chickens. Logan was there too, sitting on an armchair. I asked if he wanted to play the blind man's game, but his eyes stayed locked on the new Game Boy Mom bought for him. Mom got Grandpa settled, then made lasagna, which everyone ate except Grandma, who complained it tasted worse than fried dog shit. Afterwards, Logan asked if we were gonna stick around, but Mom said she needed to get me home because I had homework to finish. That wasn't true, and I think he knew this. The real reason was because it was already 8:45, which meant Logan and Grandma's golden hour was about to start.